After my brother had a baby, my family completely forgot I existed. I thought I'd done something wrong, until I learned he said I never wanted to meet my nephew. I sat at Mom and Dad's dining table, watching my brother Lucas spin another elaborate story about why I'd bailed on last weekend's barbecue. He gestured dramatically with his fork, telling everyone how I'd texted him some excuse about work deadlines while he was setting up the grill. She always has something, Lucas said, shaking his head like he was genuinely disappointed. Right, Brooke? Always too busy for family. My parents nodded along, Mom's face creased with that familiar look of hurt confusion. Dad just stared at his plate, probably thinking about how I used to be the one who never missed Sunday dinners. I pulled my phone out, my fingers already scrolling to the text thread with Lucas from last Friday. My heart pounded as I found what I was looking for. Actually, Lucas, I said, holding up the screen, want to tell them what you really texted me? His fork paused halfway to his mouth. What are you talking about? I cleared my throat and read directly from his message. Mom's doing a small thing this weekend. Just immediate family. You'd probably be bored anyway since it's all baby stuff with Connor. The table went completely silent. Mom's water glass stopped halfway to her lips. That's not, Lucas started. There's more, I said, scrolling down. And then Sunday morning you sent, hope you enjoyed your free weekend. Mom asked where you were and I just said you were probably swamped with work again. Dad's chair creaked as he leaned back. Lucas, what is she talking about? She's twisting it, Lucas said quickly, but his voice had that high pitch it got when he was caught. I was just trying to what? I snapped, my voice louder than I intended. To make sure I didn't show up? To tell Mom and Dad I was too selfish to care about family while you made sure I never got invited in the first place? Mom set her glass down hard enough that water sloshed onto the table. Brooke, why didn't you tell us you never got an invitation? Because I thought you just didn't want me there, I said, my throat tight. Every time I called to ask about family stuff, you'd say, oh, we already made plans, or it's just going to be low-key. I figured after Connor was born, I just didn't fit anymore. Lucas was frantically shaking his head. That's not what happened. You're making this sound way worse than— Show me your phone then, I said, sliding mine across the table to Dad. Show them the text where you invited me to anything in the last 6 months. I don't have to prove anything, Lucas said, but he'd gone pale. This is ridiculous. You're being dramatic. Dad was scrolling through my phone, his expression getting darker with each swipe. Mom leaned over to read alongside him, and I watched her face crumble as she saw message after message of Lucas telling me about family events I'd supposedly chosen to skip. Oh my God, Mom whispered. Brooke, honey, I had no idea. There's a whole conversation from Connor's birthday party, I said, my voice shaking now. Lucas told me you said it was too chaotic for extra people, so I sent Connor's present with him instead. Then apparently he told you I was too busy to even show up. I never said that, Mom said, looking between Lucas and me. I asked him why you weren't coming and he said you had work things. Because that's what he told me you said, I shot back. That you understood I was in a busy phase of my career and didn't want to pressure me. The room erupted. Dad started demanding explanations from Lucas while Mom kept apologizing to me, and Lucas kept insisting everyone was misunderstanding him, but I could see it in his eyes. That panicked look of someone whose lies were unraveling faster than he could spin new ones. This is insane, Lucas said, standing up abruptly. I'm not going to sit here and be accused of— Sit down, Dad said, his voice cutting through the chaos. You're not going anywhere until we figure out what the hell has been going on. Lucas dropped back into his chair like a deflated balloon. For the first time in months, he didn't have a smooth response ready, and my parents were looking at me like they actually wanted to hear what I had to say. Dad kept scrolling through my phone, his jaw getting tighter with each message. Mom was reading over his shoulder, making little gasping sounds every few seconds. This one's from Easter, Dad said, his voice deadly quiet. Lucas told Brooke we were keeping it small this year because I wasn't feeling well, but I was fine that day. I kept asking where she was. And this one, Mom said, pointing at the screen. From my birthday dinner, he told her we already had too many people coming. Lucas was gripping his water glass so hard I thought it might crack. You're both taking this completely out of context. I was trying to manage expectations. Manage expectations? Dad's voice rose. You told us she was too busy to come to family events while telling her we didn't want her there? How exactly is that managing anything except keeping your sister away from her own family? That's not what I was doing, Lucas said, but he couldn't look any of us in the eye. Brooke, you know that's not what I meant. I stared at him across the table. Then what did you mean? Because I have 6 months of messages here where you're basically playing middleman, making sure I never actually talked to Mom and Dad directly about plans. Mom was shaking her head slowly, like she was trying to process everything. Brooke, honey, I thought you were going through some kind of phase where you needed space from family. Lucas said you were focusing on your career and didn't want us to pressure you. When did I ever say that? I asked. When have I ever in my entire life said I wanted space from this family? You didn't, Dad said grimly. Because Lucas never asked you. He just decided for everyone. He turned to Lucas. What I want to know is why. Why would you do this to your sister? Lucas finally looked up, and for a second I saw something desperate in his expression. Because every time she shows up, it becomes about her. Connor's my son. But the minute Brooke walks in, suddenly everyone's asking about her job, her apartment, her dating life. She gets all the attention without even trying. The table went dead silent. Mom's mouth actually fell open. Are you serious right now? I said. You think I was stealing attention from your baby? Not from Connor, Lucas said quickly. From me. From Holly and me. We're the ones who made you grandparents, but you still treat Brooke like she's the golden child. Dad set my phone down carefully, like he was afraid he might throw it. Lucas, your sister missed Easter, my birthday, your son's first birthday party, and half a dozen other family gatherings because you lied to all of us. And you're sitting here telling us it's because you were jealous? I wasn't jealous, Lucas protested. I just thought it would be easier for everyone if what? Mom interrupted. If we slowly forgot we had a daughter? The words hung in the air like a slap. Lucas went pale. I never said that, he whispered. You didn't have to say it, I said. You just made it happen. Every holiday, every celebration, every time this family got together, you made sure I wasn't there. And then you made sure everyone thought it was my choice. Holly, Lucas's wife, had been quiet this whole time, feeding Connor in his his high chair, but now she cleared her throat softly. Lucas, she said, you told me Brooke was always canceling on family stuff because she thought we were boring now that we had a baby. Everyone turned to look at her. Lucas looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. I never said that either, I said. Holly, I was so excited when Connor was born. I bought him this whole collection of board books and kept asking Lucas when I could come meet him. He kept saying you guys were too tired for visitors. Holly's face changed completely. But Lucas told me you said babies weren't really your thing, and you'd wait until he was older to get involved. Oh my God, Mom breathed. Lucas, what have you done? Lucas was looking around the table like a cornered animal. I was trying to protect everyone. Brooke's always been the favorite, and I thought if she wasn't around as much, maybe you'd actually focus on Holly and Connor and me for once. By lying to everyone, Dad's voice was getting louder. By manipulating every conversation and every invitation? By making your wife think her sister-in-law didn't want to know her own nephew? I didn't manipulate anyone, Lucas said, but his voice cracked. I handled the communication. You handled it by lying, I said. To Mom and Dad, to Holly, to me. You made me think my own parents didn't want me around anymore. Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Sweetie, we always want you around. We were heartbroken thinking you didn't want to be part of the family anymore. And I was heartbroken thinking you didn't want me to be part of it, I said, my voice thick. Do you know how many nights I sat in my apartment wondering what I'd done wrong? Wondering why having a grandchild meant you didn't need a daughter anymore? Dad turned back to Lucas, and his expression was thunderous. Your sister has been suffering for months, thinking her family abandoned her because you couldn't handle not being the center of attention for 5 minutes. That's not fair, Lucas said weakly. You don't understand the pressure. The pressure of what? Holly interrupted, and now she looked angry too. Lucas, I've been wondering why Brooke seemed so distant. I thought I'd done something to offend her. You told me she just wasn't family-oriented anymore. Lucas looked trapped. I was trying to make things easier for everyone. Easier for you, Dad corrected, at everyone else's expense. Mom was still holding my hand, squeezing it like she was afraid I might disappear. Brooke, I am so sorry. If I'd known... How could you have known? I said. He made sure you couldn't know. Every time I tried to bring up family stuff, he'd already given you some explanation for why I wasn't around. The room fell quiet except for Connor babbling in his high chair, completely oblivious to the fact that his dad had just blown up the entire family dynamic. Lucas sat there staring at his plate, and I could practically see him trying to figure out how to spin this into something that wasn't his fault. But for the first time in months, no one was buying whatever he was about to sell. My phone started buzzing before I even got home from dinner. Lucas had sent me 3 texts in the span of 10 minutes. Thanks a lot for humiliating me in front of everyone. I hope you're happy now that you've turned Mom and Dad against me. All I was trying to do was keep the peace, and you made me look like some kind of villain. I stared at the messages, amazed that even now he was trying to make himself the victim. I typed back, you made yourself look like a villain by lying to everyone for 6 months. His response came immediately. I didn't lie. I interpreted situations and tried to manage them so everyone would be happy. By keeping me away from my own family, by protecting you from feeling left out when everything became about Connor. You should be thanking me. I threw my phone on my couch and walked away from it. He was actually trying to convince me that isolating me from family events was some kind of favor. But the messages kept coming. Over the next 2 days, I got a steady stream of texts from Lucas, each one more desperate than the last. He accused me of weaponizing our parents against him. He said I was trying to destroy his marriage by making Holly doubt him. He even claimed I was jealous of his relationship with Connor and was trying to sabotage it. The worst one came Tuesday night. I know you've always resented me for being the first to give Mom and Dad grandchildren, but trying to turn them against me isn't going to make you feel better about being single and childless. That one made me put my phone in a drawer for the rest of the night. Wednesday morning, my mom called. Honey, I wanted to let you know that Lucas called us last night. He's very upset. I'm sure he is, I said carefully. He says you've been sending him angry texts and threatening to cut him out of family events. My stomach dropped. Mom, that's not what happened. He's the one who's been texting me nonstop, trying to convince me that lying to everyone was actually him doing me a favor. He mentioned that you might say something like that, Mom said, and her tone was different now, more cautious. He thinks you're still very angry about the misunderstanding and might not be seeing things clearly. Misunderstanding. He'd already reframed the whole thing as a misunderstanding. Mom, can I read you some of the texts he sent me? Oh, sweetie, I don't think we need to get into all the back and forth. Lucas explained that emotions are running high and maybe you both said things you didn't mean. I felt that familiar sinking feeling, the one I'd been living with for months. Somehow, Lucas was already spinning this, and it was working. What exactly did he tell you? I asked. Just that he's worried about you, and he thinks maybe we should all take some time to cool down before we try to talk about this again. Take time to cool down. Let the heat die out of the moment so everyone could forget how angry they'd been when they saw the proof of his lies. Mom, you saw the texts on Sunday. You saw proof that he was lying to all of us. I know, honey, and we're not saying he handled things perfectly, but Lucas explained that he was just trying to spare everyone's feelings, and maybe he went about it the wrong way. Spare everyone's feelings, I wanted to scream. After I hung up with Mom, I decided to call my cousin Rachel. She'd been at a few family events recently, and I thought maybe she could give me some perspective on how obvious Lucas's lies had been to other people. Oh, hey, Brooke, Rachel said when she picked up. How are you doing? Lucas told me you guys had some kind of family drama at dinner Sunday. He told you? I asked. What did he say? Just that you've been going through a hard time lately, and you kind of exploded at him about some miscommunication with family events. He's worried about you. There it was again. I was going through a hard time. I had exploded. It was a miscommunication. Rachel, did he tell you what the miscommunication was about? He said something about how he'd been trying to manage family invitations for you, because you told him you were feeling overwhelmed with work, but then you got upset and accused him of keeping you away from family stuff on purpose. I could feel Lucas's version of events spreading through the family like a virus. By the time it got back to my parents, I'd be the unstable sister who'd had a breakdown and attacked poor Lucas for trying to help. That's not what happened, I said. He was telling Mom and Dad I was too busy for family events while telling me they didn't want me there. I have months of texts proving it. Oh, Rachel said, but her tone was careful. Well, I'm sure you guys will work it out. Family stuff is always complicated. When I hung up, I realized Lucas had already gotten to her. And if he'd gotten to Rachel, he'd probably gotten to everyone. That night, Holly texted me. Hey, Brooke, I wanted to apologize for how tense things got at dinner. Lucas explained to me what's been going on, and I understand why you're frustrated. Maybe we can all sit down and talk when everyone's had some time to process. I stared at the text. Lucas had explained to her what was going on? She'd been sitting right there when the truth came out. She'd heard him admit to lying to her about me. I called her directly. Holly, what exactly did Lucas tell you about Sunday night? Just that there's been some confusion about family invitations and you felt like he wasn't communicating well between you and your parents. He feels terrible about it. Holly, you were there. You heard him admit that he told you I said babies weren't my thing, when I never said that. You heard him admit he was keeping me away from family events. There was a long pause. I mean, I know there was some miscommunication, but Lucas explained that he was just trying to manage everyone's expectations, and it got out of hand. Lucas had gotten to his own wife. The woman who'd been sitting right next to him when his lies unraveled was now parroting his rewritten version of events. He's been texting me for 3 days, calling me jealous and vindictive. I said, does that sound like someone who feels terrible about a miscommunication? I think everyone's just stressed, Holly said diplomatically. Maybe some space would be good for everyone right now. After I hung up, I realized what Lucas had done. While I'd been sitting at home, shocked and angry about months of lies being exposed, he'd been working the phones. He'd called every family member he could think of, getting his version of the story out first. And his version was so much more palatable than the truth. In his version, I was unstable and vindictive. He was a concerned brother trying to help a struggling sister. The lies he'd told weren't malicious manipulation. They were well-meaning miscommunications that had gotten out of hand. And now, even the people who'd been sitting at that table on Sunday night were starting to believe his version instead of what they'd seen with their own eyes. I looked at my phone, seeing another string of texts from Lucas. This time he was asking me to be the bigger person and help him smooth things over with our parents. They're talking about not inviting me to family events, he wrote. Is that really what you want? To tear our family apart over a misunderstanding? Even when he was begging me for help, he was still calling it a misunderstanding. And somehow he was making me responsible for fixing the mess he'd created. The next family gathering was my cousin Rachel's engagement party 2 weeks later. I almost didn't go, but Mom called to specifically ask if I'd be there. Of course Rachel wants you there, she said. And I think it would be good for you and Lucas to be in the same room again. Maybe you can both move past this whole thing. Move past this whole thing. Like 6 months of manipulation was just a speed bump we needed to get over. I walked into the party and immediately felt the shift in energy. Conversations died down when I entered rooms. Aunts and uncles gave me tight smiles before finding excuses to drift away. My Uncle Pete, who'd always been friendly, nodded at me from across the room but didn't come over. Lucas was already there, of course, holding Connor and charming a group of relatives with some story about Connor's first attempts at walking. Everyone was laughing and cooing over the baby, and he looked completely in his element. When he saw me, he gave me this sad, brave smile, like he was being the bigger person by acknowledging my presence despite how terribly I'd treated him. Hey, Brooke, he said when I walked over to congratulate Rachel. I'm glad you made it. The relatives around him went quiet, watching our interaction like they were waiting for me to start drama. Of course I made it, I said. It's Rachel's engagement party. I just know how busy you've been, Lucas said. And there it was again. That loaded word, delivered with just the right tone of concern. I wasn't sure if you'd have time. Aunt Diane jumped in immediately. Oh, Brooke's always been so career-focused. That's wonderful, honey, but don't forget to make time for family, too. I stared at her. I haven't missed a family event by choice in 6 months. Well, Diane said awkwardly, glancing at Lucas. I know there was some confusion about invitations, but that's all sorted out now, right? Lucas nodded earnestly. I think we're all learning to communicate better. It's been a growing experience for everyone. A growing experience. He'd turned months of lies into a learning opportunity. I excused myself and went to find Rachel. She was glowing in her engagement dress, surrounded by friends, and I felt a pang of guilt for bringing family drama to her celebration. Congratulations, I said, hugging her. I'm so happy for you. Thanks, Brooke, she said, but her smile looked strained. I'm really glad you could make it. I know things have been complicated with family stuff lately. Rachel, what exactly has Lucas told everyone? She glanced around nervously. Just that you guys had a misunderstanding about communication styles and everyone got a little heated. He seems really concerned about you. Concerned about me? He mentioned that you've been under a lot of stress with work, and maybe that's making family dynamics feel more intense than they actually are. I felt that familiar rage building in my chest. Even at Rachel's engagement party, Lucas was spinning my confronting his lies into me being stressed and unstable. Rachel, you know me. Have I ever caused drama at family events before? No, of course not, she said quickly. But people go through rough patches. Lucas just wants to make sure you're okay. I walked away before I said something that would actually cause drama at her party, but the whispers followed me everywhere I went. I caught fragments of conversations that stopped when people noticed me listening. Always seemed so put together, but you never know. Lucas is handling it really well, considering probably just needs some time. At one point, I overheard my Aunt Janet talking to my mom in the kitchen. He's such a good brother, Janet was saying, still trying to include her in everything even after she accused him of deliberately keeping her away from family. That takes a lot of maturity. Lucas has always always been sensitive to other people's feelings, Mom replied. I think he was genuinely trying to help Brooke manage her schedule and she misinterpreted it. I stood in the doorway, listening to my own mother explain away months of documented lies as me misinterpreting Lucas's helpfulness. Has she always been this intense? Janet asked. She's been different since Lucas had Connor, Mom said quietly. I think seeing him become a father has been hard for her. She's always been competitive with him. Competitive. They thought I was jealous of my brother having a baby, not angry about being systematically excluded from family events. I walked into the kitchen. Mom, can I talk to you? Both women jumped, realizing I'd heard them talking about me. Of course, sweetie, Mom said, but her tone was careful. I need you to understand something. Lucas didn't misinterpret anything. He lied to you, to me, and to Holly for months. You saw the proof. I saw some texts that could be interpreted different ways, Mom said, and I think you're both at fault for not communicating directly with us. How could I communicate directly with you when Lucas was intercepting every opportunity for me to do that? Janet shifted uncomfortably. Maybe I should give you two some privacy. No, stay, I said. I want everyone to hear this. Lucas told you I was too busy for family events while telling me you didn't want me there. He admitted it at dinner 2 weeks ago. You heard him admit it. What I heard, Mom said firmly, was a family disagreement that got out of hand because everyone was emotional. He told Holly I said babies weren't my thing. He told Dad I was going through a phase where I didn't want to be around family. He told Rachel I was stressed and making everything more dramatic than it needed to be. Are those all just miscommunications? Mom's face tightened. Brooke, I think you need to ask yourself why you're so determined to paint your brother as some kind of villain. He made some mistakes in how he handled things, but his heart was in the right place. Janet nodded sympathetically. Sometimes when we're going through a hard time, it's easier to blame someone else than to look at our own part in the situation. I stared at both of them. They'd completely rewritten the entire situation in their minds. Lucas wasn't a manipulator who'd lied to everyone for months. He was a concerned brother, trying to help his difficult sister. I wasn't someone who'd been systematically excluded from family events. I was a jealous, unstable woman who was lashing out because I couldn't handle my brother's happiness. You know what? I said. You're right. This is clearly all my fault. I should apologize to Lucas for having evidence of his lies. I walked out of the kitchen and straight to where Lucas was still entertaining relatives with Connor. The group parted slightly when I approached, like they were worried I might do something unpredictable. Lucas, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear, I owe you an apology. His face lit up with surprise and relief. Brooke, you don't have to. No, I do, I continued. I'm sorry that when you spent 6 months lying to our entire family about me, I had the audacity to keep screenshots of your texts as evidence. That was really unfair of me. The group went dead silent. Lucas's smile faltered. I'm also sorry that when you told Holly I said babies weren't my thing, I expected you to tell the truth about that. And I'm especially sorry that when you told our parents I was too busy for family while telling me they didn't want me around, I thought that was manipulative instead of helpful. Brooke, Lucas said quietly, his face going red. This isn't the place. You're right, I said. This isn't the place. But then again, neither was the dinner table 2 weeks ago. And you seemed fine with having that conversation in front of everyone. The difference is, 2 weeks ago, you thought you could control the narrative. I turned to walk away, but Lucas grabbed my arm. Why are you doing this? Why can't you just let it go? I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. Because you're still lying, Lucas. Even now, even after everything, you're still trying to convince everyone that this is my fault. I'm not lying, he said, but his voice cracked. I made some mistakes, but I never meant. You meant every word, I said, loud enough for the whole group to hear. You wanted me gone from family events, and you found a way to make it happen while making everyone think it was my choice. I pulled my arm free and walked toward the door. Behind me, I could hear Lucas trying to salvage the situation, his voice high and desperate as he attempted to explain to everyone that I was having some kind of breakdown. But for the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't care what story he told them. I was done trying to prove the truth to people who were determined to believe his lies. Monday morning, I got a call from Holly. Her voice sounded different, less diplomatic, more frustrated. Brooke, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, I said, bracing myself for another conversation where I'd have to defend reality. Did you really tell Lucas that you thought Connor was boring because he's just a baby? I nearly dropped my phone. What? No, Holly, I've never said anything like that. Where is this coming from? Lucas told me yesterday that you said it at Rachel's party. He said you were upset about all the attention Connor gets, and you made some comment about how babies are boring, and you don't understand why everyone makes such a big deal about them. Holly, I barely spoke to Lucas at the party, and I would never ever say something like that about Connor or any baby. There was a long pause. That's what I thought, because it didn't sound like you. But Lucas was so specific about it. What exactly did he say? He said you pulled him aside and told him you were tired of every family event being about Connor, and that you didn't get why everyone was so fascinated by a baby who just eats and sleeps. He said you seemed really bitter about it. I felt that familiar chill. Holly, I never pulled Lucas aside at that party. The only conversation we had was in front of a group of relatives when I confronted him about his lies. About his, what do you mean lies? The lies he's been telling everyone. About me being too busy for family events. About me not wanting to be around family. About me being jealous and unstable. None of that is true. Holly was quiet for a long moment. Brooke, I'm starting to think I need to hear your side of this story. The whole story. Because some things aren't adding up. I spent the next hour on the phone with Holly, walking her through everything. The texts, the missed invitations, the systematic exclusion from family events, and Lucas's campaign to rewrite history after he got caught. I read her some of the messages he'd sent me, the ones where he admitted to managing family communications. Oh my God, Holly said when I finished. Brooke, I had no idea. He told me you were going through some kind of quarter-life crisis and lashing out at family because you felt left behind. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. It was easier than thinking my husband was lying to everyone for months. Her voice got quiet. But there have been other things. Small things. Stories that didn't quite match up. Times when he said you'd canceled plans, but then you'd mentioned something that suggested you never knew about the plans in the first place. Like what? Your birthday dinner last year. Lucas said you didn't want to celebrate because you were feeling weird about turning another year older together without being married or having kids. But then you mentioned to me later that nobody had asked what you wanted to do for your birthday. I remembered that birthday. I'd spent it alone, assuming my family had forgotten. Lucas had told everyone I wanted to skip celebrating. Holly, how many other things has he lied about? I don't know, she said, and she sounded scared. I'm starting to wonder if I know my own husband at all. That afternoon, my cousin Rachel called. Brooke, I owe you an apology, she said without preamble. I've been thinking about what happened at my party, and I realized I never actually asked you what your side of the story was. I just listened to Lucas and assumed he was telling the truth. What made you change your mind? I was talking to my mom about it, and she reminded me of something. Remember last Christmas when Lucas said you told him you couldn't make it to our family's Christmas Eve dinner because you had plans with friends? I never said that. He never even told me about the dinner. That's what I'm starting to think. Because my mom said she ran into you at the grocery store that day, and you seemed really sad. When she asked if you were okay, you said something about how you wished you had family plans for Christmas Eve, but everyone seemed to have their own thing going on. I remembered that conversation. Rachel's mom had been so sweet, and I'd been trying not to cry in the frozen food aisle because I thought my family had stopped including me in Christmas traditions. Rachel, Lucas has been lying about me for a lot longer than just the past few months. I'm starting to see that. And Brooke, at the party, when you confronted him in front of everyone, he looked panicked, not hurt or confused like someone who'd been falsely accused. He looked like someone who'd been caught. Did anyone else notice that? A few people mentioned it to me afterward. Uncle Pete said something about how Lucas's story kept changing every time someone asked him about it. That evening, Uncle Pete himself called me. Brooke, I owe you an apology, he said. I've been hearing different versions of this family drama from different people, and I realized I never heard yours. I appreciate that, Uncle Pete. I also realized something else. For the past year or so, every time I've asked about you at family gatherings, Lucas always has some explanation for why you're not there, and those explanations have been getting more and more elaborate. What do you mean? Well, at first it was just that you were busy with work. Then it became you were going through a phase where you needed space from family. Then it was that you were feeling awkward around Connor because you wanted kids but weren't dating anyone seriously. Yesterday at the party, he told 3 different people 3 different reasons why you've been difficult lately. What did he say? He told your Aunt Janet that you've been struggling with depression and taking it out on family. He told cousin Mark that you've always been jealous of him and having a baby just made it worse. And he told me that you've been drinking too much and getting emotional about everything. I felt sick. None of that is true. I know it's not. That's why I'm calling. I've known you your whole life, Brooke. You're not jealous, you're not a dramatic person, and you've never been anything but supportive of your brother. But Lucas has been working overtime to convince everyone otherwise. Why didn't anyone question it before now? Because it's easier to believe one person is having problems than to believe someone you love is capable of that kind of manipulation, Pete said sadly. And because Lucas is very good at making his lies sound reasonable and concerned rather than malicious. So what changed your mind? I started paying attention to his body language when he talked about you, and I noticed that he never seemed sad about your supposed problems. He seemed satisfied, like he enjoyed having everyone worried about you instead of questioning him. That night, Mom called, but this time her voice was different. Brooke, I've been doing some thinking since Rachel's party, she said, and I've been going back through some conversations I had with Lucas over the past year. What kind of conversations? Times when I asked about you, and he gave me explanations for why you weren't around or why you seemed distant. I'm starting to realize that a lot of those explanations contradicted things you'd told me directly. I held my breath, and I keep thinking about something Holly said to me yesterday. She asked me if I remembered you ever actually saying you wanted space from family or that you were too busy for us. And I realized, I don't. Every conversation I've had with you, you've seemed like you wanted more family time, not less. Mom, I think I owe you a very big apology, sweetheart. I think your brother has been lying to all of us for a very long time, and I think I let him because it was easier than admitting that my son was capable of something so hurtful. I started crying. After months of feeling like I was losing my mind, having my own mother acknowledge the truth felt like being able to breathe again. There's something else, Mom said. Your father and I have been talking, and we've decided we want to have a family dinner this weekend. Just us and you and Lucas and Holly. No extended family, no distractions. We want to get to the bottom of this once and for all. Mom, he's just going to lie again. He'll come up with explanations for everything and make me look like I'm attacking him. Not this time, Mom said, and her voice was steel. This time, we're going in prepared, because if our son has been manipulating our family for months, we need to know. And if he has, there are going to be consequences. Saturday night arrived, and I sat in my parents' living room with my phone in my lap, every damning text conversation ready to go. Mom and Dad had spent the week preparing for this dinner like they were building a legal case, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had backup. Lucas walked in with Holly and Connor, and immediately I could tell something was off. His usual confident swagger was replaced by something twitchy and defensive. Holly looked nervous, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Thanks for setting this up, Lucas said as he settled Connor in his portable high chair. I think it's good that we're all talking about this situation like adults. Dad didn't smile back. We think it's overdue. Mom served dinner in tense silence, and I could feel Lucas trying to read the room. Usually he'd be regaling everyone with stories about Connor by now, but tonight he seemed to sense that his usual charm offensive wasn't going to work. So, Dad said once everyone had food on their plates, we want to clear up some confusion about family communications over the past year. Right, Lucas said, immediately shifting into damage control mode. I think there were definitely some miscommunications on everyone's part, and I take responsibility for my role in that. What role was that exactly? Mom asked. Lucas glanced between our parents, clearly trying to gauge how much trouble he was in. I think I tried too hard to manage everyone's expectations and ended up creating confusion instead of preventing it. Manage expectations how, Dad pressed. Well, you know how Brooke has been really focused on her career lately, and sometimes she's had to cancel plans last minute. I was trying to spare everyone's feelings by handling those conversations for her instead of making her feel guilty about it. I opened my mouth to respond, but Dad held up a hand. Lucas, we want you to be very specific. Can you give us an example of a time when Brooke asked you to cancel plans for her? Lucas's fork paused halfway to his mouth. I mean, it wasn't always that direct. Sometimes she'd mention being stressed about work, and I'd read between the lines. Read between the lines, Mom repeated. So you made assumptions about what she wanted without asking her directly. I was trying to be considerate, Lucas said, but his voice had that high pitch again. Brooke's always been sensitive about feeling pressured to do family stuff, so I thought, when has Brooke ever been sensitive about family stuff? Dad interrupted. In 32 years? When has your sister ever complained about spending time with family? Lucas looked trapped. I mean, not complained exactly, but Lucas, Holly said quietly. Just tell them the truth. Everyone turned to look at her. She was staring at her plate, her knuckles white around her fork. Holly? Mom said gently. What truth? Holly looked up and I could see tears in her eyes. Lucas, they're going to find out anyway. All of it. Find out what? Dad asked, his voice getting dangerous. Lucas shot Holly a panicked look. Holly, don't what? She snapped, finally looking at him. Don't tell them how you've been lying to me too? Don't tell them about the group chat? My stomach dropped. What group chat? Holly pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Lucas has a group chat with some of his college friends. They call it Family Drama Updates. He's been sharing screenshots of your texts to him, Brooke, and making fun of you. The room went completely silent except for Connor babbling in his high chair. What? I whispered. Holly's voice was getting stronger now, like she'd been holding this in for weeks. He told them how he was managing the family dynamics by keeping you away from events. His friends thought it was hilarious how clueless everyone was. Dad's chair scraped against the floor as he pushed back from the table. Show us. I can't, Holly said. He deleted the chat when I confronted him about it yesterday, but I took screenshots first. She swiped through her phone and held it up. Even from across the table, I could see Lucas's messages in a group chat called Family Drama Updates. Read it out loud, Mom said, her voice deadly quiet. Holly cleared her throat. This is from 3 months ago. Lucas wrote, Operation Keep Brooke Busy is working perfectly. Told the parents she's in her career-focused phase and doesn't want family pressure. Told her they're doing small gatherings since the baby takes all their energy. Everyone's happy and I don't have to share the spotlight. Win-win. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He'd made a game out of isolating me from my own family. There's more, Holly continued. From last month, Brooke tried to call Mom directly about Easter plans, but I intercepted and told Mom she was just being polite and didn't really want to come. Then told Brooke that Mom said it was just immediate family. The woman has no idea she's being managed. Mom made a sound like a wounded animal. And this one from 2 weeks ago after your confrontation dinner, family dinner was a disaster. Brooke had screenshots of everything and parents lost their minds, but I'm spinning it as her having a breakdown from work stress and jealousy about the baby. Holly's buying it, parents are starting to buy it. Damage control in progress. Dad stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. Get out. Dad, wait, Lucas said, his voice cracking. It's not what it looks like. Get out of my house. Lucas jumped up, reaching for Connor. You're overreacting. It was just venting to friends. You made a group chat to mock your sister, Mom said, standing up too. You turned her exclusion from family events into entertainment for your college buddies. It wasn't like that, Lucas protested, but he was backing toward the door. I never meant, you meant every word, I said, finding my voice. You planned this. All of it. You wanted me gone from family events and you found a way to make it happen while making everyone think it was my choice. That's not true, Lucas said desperately. I love you, Brooke. You're my sister. Sisters don't do this to each other, Holly said, still scrolling through her screenshots. Oh, here's a good one. From Connor's birthday party, Brooke sent a present but didn't come because I told her it was too chaotic for extra people, then told everyone she was too busy with work to show up. She actually thanked me for understanding her schedule. This is almost too easy. Lucas was shaking his head frantically. Holly, you're taking everything out of context. What context makes this okay? She demanded. What context makes lying to your family for months and then bragging about it to your friends okay? I was protecting everyone, Lucas said, but even he didn't sound like he believed it anymore. Brooke's always gotten more attention than me, and after Connor was born, I thought, you thought what? Dad roared. That you had the right to manipulate your entire family because you were jealous? I wasn't jealous, Lucas said weakly. You were pathetic, Mom said, and the contempt in her voice was devastating. You were so threatened by your own sister that you had to sabotage her relationships with everyone she loves. Holly stood up, lifting Connor from his high chair. I'm taking Connor home. Lucas, you can find your own ride. Holly, please, Lucas said, reaching for her arm. Don't do this. Think about our family. I am thinking about our family, she said, pulling away from him. I'm thinking about how I don't want Connor growing up thinking this kind of behavior is normal. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Brooke, I am so sorry. I should have questioned his stories from the beginning. I should have talked to you directly. Holly, you don't have to, I started. Yes, I do, she said firmly, because I was part of this. I let him convince me that you didn't want to be involved with Connor, and I never once thought to ask you myself. I'm ashamed of that. She kissed Connor's head and looked at my parents. Thank you for handling this, and thank you for not giving up on the truth. After Holly left, Lucas tried one more desperate play. Mom, Dad, I know I made mistakes, but you have to understand the pressure I've been under. Being a new father, trying to balance everyone's needs. Stop, Dad said. Just stop. We've heard enough. But if you could just... Lucas, Mom said, and her voice was ice. I want you to listen to me very carefully. You have spent months lying to every person in this family. You turned your sister's love for us against her. You made us think she didn't want to spend time with us. You made her think we didn't want her around. You bragged about it to your friends like it was a joke. I know it looks bad. It doesn't just look bad, Dad said. It is bad. You are bad. What kind of person does this to their own family? Lucas was crying now, ugly, desperate tears. I can make this right. I can fix this. No, Mom said. You can't, because we'll never trust you again. Every story you tell, every explanation you give, We'll wonder if it's another lie designed to manipulate us. Please, Lucas begged. I'm your son. Right now, Dad said. You're a stranger who looks like our son. The son we raised wouldn't have done this. Lucas looked at me one last time, his face crumpled and desperate. Brooke, please. Tell them this isn't what I am. Tell them I'm not a monster. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but emptiness where my love for my brother used to be. You made a group chat to mock me, I said quietly. You turned excluding me from family events into a game for your friends' entertainment. You made our parents think I didn't love them anymore. You made me think they didn't love me. I stood up slowly. I don't know what you are, Lucas, but you're not my brother anymore. He left then finally, and the house fell silent except for the sound of Mom crying. Dad came over and put his arms around both of us. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry we let this happen. How are you supposed to know? I said, leaning into him. He's been playing this game for months, maybe longer. That's what scares me, Mom said, wiping her eyes. How long has he been lying to us? How many other things has he manipulated that we'll never even know about? We sat together in the wreckage of our family dinner, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The truth was finally out, all of it, and there was no way for Lucas to spin this or rewrite history or convince anyone that I was the problem. His own words had condemned him. His own arrogance had been his downfall, and now everyone could see exactly who he really was. 2 days later, Mom called to tell me they were planning a makeup dinner for the following weekend. Just me, them, and Holly with Connor. Lucas wasn't invited. Holly's filing for separation, Mom said quietly. She said she can't trust anything he's told her about anything anymore, and she doesn't want Connor growing up thinking manipulation is normal. How is she doing? Better than expected. She said it actually explains a lot of things that never made sense about their relationship. Apparently this wasn't just about you. He's been controlling information and managing her relationships with other people too. That evening, Dad texted me a photo from their bedroom. They'd taken down the family portrait that had been hanging there for 2 years, the one with all of us, including Lucas holding baby Connor. In its place was an older photo from before Connor was born, just the 4 of us at my college graduation. Until he proves he's changed, Dad's text read, if he ever can. The makeup dinner was everything family dinners used to be before Lucas turned them into battlefields. Holly brought Connor, who immediately reached for me when he saw me, and for the first time, I got to actually spend time with my nephew without Lucas hovering and managing every interaction. Mom and Dad couldn't stop apologizing, but I kept telling them the truth. There was no way they could have known. Lucas had been playing a long game and he'd been very good at it. The worst part, Mom said as we cleaned up dishes, is wondering what else he's lied about over the years. How many other situations has he manipulated that we just accepted as truth? Holly overheard and nodded grimly. I've been going through our entire relationship in my head. So many fights we had that started because he told me someone said something they probably never said. So many friendships I lost because he convinced me people didn't really like me. He won't get the chance to do it again, Dad said firmly. Not to any of us. 3 weeks later, I got a long email from Lucas. It was full of apologies and explanations, promises to go to therapy and make amends. He said he understood why everyone was angry but hoped that someday we could work toward forgiveness. I deleted it without responding. My family was back and Lucas was out. For once, I wasn't the forgotten one. He was.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your favorite part in the comments. See you in the next one.